Welcome, everybody, in the You Are Worthy Network. I'm so excited to be with you again. Today, I actually know, or I think I know, what day it is. It's actually Tuesday, right? Confirm, right? It is Tuesday. So sometimes I lose track. And it is March, which is crazy to think about that we're March 3rd already. My gosh, the first quarter is almost over. You know that saying, time flies when you're having fun. As I get older, I just say it flies, so you better have fun and enjoy it while you go along with the journey. It's great to be with you guys today. I want to prematurely celebrate with you for just a second before I introduce you to our incredible guest. It could happen tonight. It could happen overnight. I'm pretty sure it'll happen by tomorrow sometime. But I launched this group on August the 5th last year. So it'll be 7 months in a couple of days. And God has grown this group to 10,000 people. It'll pass 10,000 people in the next several hours. And I want to praise him for that, number one. And number two, I want to thank each one of you because the group was started because of you. It was started to give you a little hope. It was started because when I looked back on my mindset journey, I felt a lot of unworthiness, quite frankly. And I was like, you know what? If I struggle with it, I bet you there's a lot of other people who struggle with it too. And that's why I started this, to remind you that your story's not over yet. So be encouraged. If you're here today, your story's not over yet. And God's not done with you. So I appreciate each one of you. So, all that being said, let me tell you about my friend Christine. Christine Marie is a wife, mom of four, foster and adoptive mother, twice certified biblical mindset coach, and soon to be published author. After fostering 77 children over a decade, she experienced firsthand the toll prolonged stress can take on the body and the mind. That season became the catalyst for her own healing and calling to help women break free from chronic stress and step confidently into their kingdom purpose. This journey propelled her to grow her Instagram from 0 to 418,000 followers in just 22 months. She hosts the top 2% ranked podcast, What to Expect While Fostering and Adopting, mentors high capacity leaders in the wellness industry, and has led her team to nearly 5.5 million in sales. Christine lives in Las Vegas, Nevada, and is passionate about helping women walk in health, wholeness, and the calling God has placed on their lives. Christine, welcome to the You Are Worthy Network.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, reconnected with you.
Oh my gosh. Christine and I were talking before we went live. There's so many different ways we could take this episode. And that's from things that she and I have in common. But you guys all just heard it. She's multi-talented and has many plates spinning, and they're all good. So no pressure on me. I have to find a way to condense this down, but I think we'll trust God and it'll be just fine. Um, Christine, like I was saying at the beginning, one of the many blessings of having a group that's grown to this size is, we're eventually going to have people watch this that are in Europe, Asia, certainly Canada, possibly South America, watching all over the world. Are you still in the Vegas area?
We are. And I think that's the interesting part. So, like, my podcast is in, oh gosh, almost 90 countries. And I sit and go, how did that happen? But God did it. And it's really cool when that happens.
That's amazing. 90.
Yeah.
90. I could probably do it with a lot of focus and coffee. I don't know if I could put down 90 countries on a legal pad.
That
Maybe.
it
That's a
was,
that's a lot.
it's a lot. Well, and it's interesting. So you go through, and for me, I'm thinking, well, what would people in this country, insert whatever country, want to know about the foster care and adoptive, arena in the US. But obviously there's some piece there that God wants them to hear. So yeah, it's really amazing. I'm excited for you. Congratulations on 10,000 members. That's all God. He does incredible things.
All God, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. So, what do you and your rather large family like to do for fun in Vegas, or do y'all like to travel?
It's interesting. So, our family used to be large. So, I was looking back at a photo of, at one point we had 11 kids in our home. So, it was seven foster kids, our two adoptive kids, and our two bio kids, right? So, we had 11 kids. So, my husband and I, the lone soldiers with 11 kids in a photo. And then we also had three full-time nannies. I feel like it was like a partridge in a pear tree. But it was busy all the time. And then once our foster care journey was over, that was 10 years, then we transitioned to the what are we going to do with the rest of our lives? And, then it was taking care of the kids. And now we only have our 18-year-old daughter. She's in her last couple months of online homeschooling. And I feel like we're really boring now. And so, you know, um, when my grandfather just recently passed away, but when, we moved to Vegas to be with him and care for him. And so it was, the dinners every night, every single night, it was the traditional sit down where you have a protein, you have your vegetable, you have the salad, you have the rolls, all the stuff that makes grandpa feel good. And now that he's passed away, which has been about a month and a few days, my oldest is going, Mom, are we going to sit down and have a normal dinner? And I was like, yes, let's do that. We played Clue the first time. Like that's the extent of our excitement living in Vegas was we played Clue. And I travel for work quite a bit. Um, I'm in network marketing or social selling, and my husband works a lot of hours. And I feel like we're in that time frame right now of God is redeeming the time. And so we're very, very busy right now. Me doing my things, my husband doing his things, my daughter homeschooling, and um, yeah. So we're actually, I feel like, kind of boring now at this point in our lives.
Well, you are entitled to some boredom after all that you've done, and we'll see if we come back to this, but a lot of things in your resume stood out to me. But 77 foster kids. Okay, all right. So for those of you that know my story a little bit, you know that we adopted three at one time. And we were clear when we went through the foster care classes, like, no, we've got a goal and it's to adopt. And fortunately that was the Lord's will too. But I'm
Yeah.
like looking at all these folks that are updating their foster care classes and requirements and like, oh yeah, we just had eight and yeah, we're taking on another four next week. And I'm like, you guys are the heroes. And so I'm saying that to you. You guys, 77. Unbelievable. But hopefully we'll come back to that. By the way, I'm so sorry about your grandfather.
Thank you.
That's hard for sure.
Yeah.
Let's go back in time a little bit, Christine. I want to
Yeah.
take you back because I haven't met the person yet that went straight from high school to I want to be a network marketer. Now, maybe it exists somewhere. I just haven't met him yet, but I've not met him yet. So let's go back to high school. I want to get into your mindset a little bit because 17,
Hmm.
18-year-olds, they run the gamut of emotions and they run the gamut of intentionality to having no clue. And
Hmm.
I'm not here to judge any of it because I was more on the side of, yeah, I'm going to go to 4 year school because that's what society tells you to do.
Yeah.
But you got 2 weeks left in high school. You've got the cap and gown. Maybe you've got the class ring. You've got the date marked on the calendar. You're marking them down. Are you in full senioritis mode? Get me out of here. I've got my 4 year school. I've got maybe there's another plan. I can't wait to move on to what's next. Or is it, I don't know. I'm going to miss this place. I'm going to miss my friends. I'm going to miss these teachers. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. or maybe somewhere in between? Tell us where you were.
So it's interesting because m- the version of me about 2 weeks before graduating. So when you we graduated. I was from a little town, or not little town. I guess it was smaller town, right outside of Portland, Oregon at that time, and we graduated in this beautiful. I can't remember what it was called. Basically, like where they would have like a concert hall, and so they asked us to pair up. So you had to pair up with one other person. I didn't have any friends in high school. And I mean, I had social people like I'd say hi to, but and I didn't know this is what it was at the time, but I had such bad social anxiety. And I had a dad who was in the military and working a full time job. And had, I was the oldest. And so I wore a lot of the responsibility for the younger kids. There were four of us. And my mom and dad both struggled with all things life. I mean, this is before really the internet, right? And so you couldn't really like search what's going on with me. And so I spent a lot of time overwhelmed and emotionally stressed out. So I had a lot of friends that were social friends, but I didn't really have like that one person or one best friend that I really connected with. So for me, I feel like I was kind of like an old soul in high school. Like I was just um I understood the assignment of what we were supposed to do, but it never felt like I belonged. And so for me, I was stressed out. I'm walking next to this person. I wish I had a best friend. I don't have somebody. Um, and of course, we've unpacked this in a lot of healing work that I've done and mindset work. And it's truly, I was overwhelmed. I had no college plans. Neither at that point, my mom went on to get her master's and had like an incredible college experience, but she didn't go to college until I think until she was in her 40s. And so I didn't have really any role model to say, like, you need to go to college. So I didn't even have any college plans. I didn't even,
Mhm.
I just, I was so oblivious to some things. I want to say, like, just innocent and didn't know. And I remember I was working. This was like a couple weeks before we graduated. I was working at a coffee shop. So I worked at a coffee shop since I was like 16. And I worked full time. And so every day after school, I would go there and work, and I would go in early on the weekends and whatnot. And this one gal, I remember, she said, "So where are you going to college?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I gotta figure that out." And she was like, "What do you mean? You should have already been accepted and taken your SATs, and you should have already applied." And I was like, "Oh no, really?" And she was like, "Oh my gosh. Well, I go to school at the community college. Do you want me to take you there and I can show you?" She said, "You can just go 2 years and then you can go to a better school." And I was like, "Yeah, but I wanted to go to a really good college." Like, and she was like, "Well, you can. You just need to go to a community college for like 2 years and then you can apply." I was like, these were all the thoughts going around in my head as I missed the boat. I have no best friend to walk like down the aisle thing with and across the stage with. And so I was just feeling uncomfortable, like a fish out of water, I guess.
I mean, yeah, you don't, I mean, that's anybody, right? We don't know what
Yeah.
we don't know.
Yeah.
And you're just doing the best you can in that situation. But by the way, I find it hard to believe they didn't have the internet in 2015 when you graduated high school. But anyway,
2015.
I digress.
I wish.
um, okay, so tell us more. So do you eventually go to school, and then what do you do in your young professional years?
So it was interesting. So, and this is the cool part where it's like, God doesn't miss a beat. Like, you cannot plan for college. It doesn't matter. Like, where he is, he will make a way. And so, um, my friend was like, "I'm going to take you to the community college." And I was like, "Okay, perfect. But I don't want to pay for school." And she was like, okay. And she thought, and I don't even know where I got this idea from. But so she took me to the school and I met with some people and I told them at the admissions, I said, I don't want to pay for school though. And they said, well, that's great. You can get loans or you can volunteer in the student government. And I was like, oh, I'll volunteer. I love that. Like, that's a mate. Perfect. Like, I'm such a servant leader. Like, I didn't even know what it was then. So I walked into the student government office and I said, hello, I would like to volunteer. And this guy walked up to the counter and this other guy, and they said, perfect. What would you like to do? And I was like, I don't know. But through my church, one of the people at our church was a state representative. And not knowing what I was doing at the time, he had asked the church if there were any people that would like to volunteer for on his campaign. And I said, yeah, I'll volunteer. So I went in and I worked in the campaign office. I mean, it was nothing I ever thought twice about. And so they said, have you done anything? Have you worked? Have you ever? And they started asking me questions about politics. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm a volunteer on this person's campaign. And they're like, oh my gosh, you are? And I said, yes. And they said, oh, would you like to come in for an interview? And I said, sure, absolutely. So I go to this interview and they end up giving me a full-time volunteer job that pays for all my college.
Mm.
And I end up being the student legislative director for the college. And so I'm going full time to school. All my books are paid for. My college is paid for. I'm volunteering. They said, well, we need you to call all of these senators and congressional people to invite them to come to the school, to the college for this event. And I'm like, yeah, no big deal. Like I had no fear of anybody. I didn't care. It didn't bother me. Um, Mrs. Overwhelmed by social anxiety, right? At the same time, it makes no sense. So I start calling all these people. I think I had the largest turnout that they've ever had of people who said yes. And I ended up being asked to be a part of the volunteering on the Bush campaign from that. But the funny story is the guy who was at the front desk who asked me what experience I had, um, that ended up to be my husband. And so I walked in, and the first time I met him, I was answering all the questions. I went home and I said, I had a boyfriend that I had had for 4 years, the very serious high school boyfriends that are all of not good for you. And I went home and I told my parents, I said, oh my goodness, I met the guy I'm going to marry. And they said, what? I said, I went to school. I went to this college. My friend took me. And I have an interview for a student government position, and they could pay for my college. And I met the guy I'm going to marry. And they're like, okay, she's lost her mind. And we've been married 25 years now. And it
Wow.
was, we went to President Bush's inaugural ball. We traveled, we lobbied Congress together, all kinds of things that I never would have imagined. And it was God. I mean, he just paves the way. He provides provision where you have no idea. So I'm 18 years old. I'm sitting at these dinners with members of Congress and lobbying for educational funding for grants that I've never received or even applied for, and meeting members of Congress that it just blows my mind now because people will look back at these people and say, "Oh yes, this person was quite significant in our nation's history." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I had dinner with them." And it was just one of those God did it moments. And so I ended up going to school for 2 years. And then my whole objective was I wanted to be a homicide detective for the FBI. That's what I wanted to do my whole life. And then at the time, I stopped working for the coffee shop and I ended up working for Clinique Cosmetics. I was an account coordinator with the cosmetics company. And or before I was working at the Clinique counter, and then they offered me a position within, I think, 6 months. I was promoted like 4 different times. And they said, they offered me this job, and the starting pay was the starting pay of an entry level FBI agent. And I thought, let me do the math. I'm going to go to college for 2 more years where I would possibly need to get student loans or debt or pay it however that would work out to make an income that I can go make right now. So that was the end of college for me because it was a very black and white, easy decision for me.
Wow. So
Yeah,
I assume there's a natural segue from Clinique to network marketing.
absolutely none. So,
Hmm.
well, I did coach women. So I had over 100 women. I had multiple stores that I was responsible for in 3 different states. And so I would fly to different stores or travel to different stores, and I would coach these women on sales. And so that was my primary responsibility, was to make sure that they were hitting their income goals and their sales goals, and achieving what they wanted to in the Clinique business. And it was in that process, I ended up having both of my boys, and my youngest had a lot of attachment struggles of not having of really struggling when I would leave for work. And then so I think I think I only worked until he was maybe 1 years old, and then I quit and stayed at home and thought, well, I'm just going to be a stay-at-home mom forever. And I realized God didn't make me that way. And so, massive shout out to all the stay-at-home moms, because it's a lot. It's such a rewarding um thing to do. But God was like, I'm going to give you this, but I never had plans to do anything else in network. Like, I didn't even know what network marketing was. Actually, network marketing began from people that I met through my foster care journey, trying to get me to buy their stuff because I was on social media.
Wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
tell us in this journey of okay, so your last position with Clinique is like a sales manager. Is that accurate?
Kind of. Yeah, I was a coordinator, so I just was responsible for, I think I had 13 or 15 different stores, over 100 consultants, and I was responsible for the sales revenue.
Okay, so at
Yeah.
this point, you and your husband are married. You've already started your
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the line, you're praying about fostering, or does the situation present itself and you start praying?
No, so it was the wildest thing, and this is the story part or more detailed story of this I share in the book that's being published, or that is released this month. And it's um I never had a desire to have children. I didn't even like kids. And when my husband, I remember when he told me, he was brought me flowers one day and a card, and he was like, "Congratulations, you're pregnant." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Well, I you're pregnant, I'm sure of it." And I started crying. And I was like, "I can't be pregnant. I'm working. I have this amazing career. No, I can't be. That's not possible. How would you even know that?" And he's like, "I'm your husband. I know these things." So he had me take a test, and sure enough, I was pregnant. And um that changed the whole trajectory, but I never had that like maternal instinct that I know a lot of women say they have, that they want to have children. I'm sure men do as well. Like, I want a family. I never had that. Um and so it wasn't until, I want to say, like 2007. So I'd already been married 7 years. Our boys, we were happy. We had our 2 boys, we had our dog, we had our house. Life was good. And I woke up one day and I was like, I want a girl. And that was the first time in my life I've ever had that desire to have more children or any children. Like that was a first. And so we started looking at adopting because us having more children was very high risk, and the doctors had already told us not, no more. And I remember at that point, I was totally fine. I was like, good riddance. Perfect. Like, I loved my boys, but no more pregnancy. I was a terrible pregnant person. And so I started looking at adopting, and we started talking to a lot of adoption agencies. And then one of the adoption agencies at that time, probably before all these rules of sharing information, called us and said, "Hey, did you know you can adopt for free through the foster care system?" And so that's what kind of began that journey. But then it was one of the foster children that we had. We only took the hardest of the hardest of the hardest children because um, I don't know why. That's just where God like led. And so this one gal had said, I can watch him for you because I needed a break. I was overwhelmed. I was spent. I was tired. And she said, I can watch him for a couple hours. And I said, okay, perfect. So she watched him for a couple hours. When she came back, I said, can I please pay you because you don't understand like what a blessing this was for me. And she said, no, but you can buy a starter kit from me for my network marketing company. And I was like, that's weird, but okay. Um, because I just thought, well, however it benefits you, I don't care. Like, I'll buy it. And that was the first time I ever purchased anything from a network marketing company, which was essential oils. And then I realized, wow, these can really help our kids and our foster kids. And I started seeing all these Instagram posts about people who had these really big, beautiful houses who had done network marketing, and then they could have their chickens and their goats and their cows. And by the way, I don't want any of those things anymore. But they had, like, there were a lot of adoptive families that were really big families who had these amazing estates. And so for me, that became the vision. And I thought God led me here for this. And now it's something completely different. But somehow I ended up from homicide detective to foster parent to network marketing. And I don't know. God's plans are curvy and interesting, and but I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't have it any other way.
I was going to say, I'm sure you had to learn quickly to put the seatbelt on because it sounds like quite a ride at this point.
It was, and it was what I really looked back on and through all of this was a lot of us who have walked through unstable, and I won't say that my childhood was bad, but it was just two parents trying to navigate the military and trauma and their own childhood trauma. And my mom was Hispanic, and my dad was very Caucasian. And there was a lot of racism against my mom and us as kids because I looked Hispanic and my sister didn't. And so my sister had special privileges that I didn't. And so there was just a lot of trauma that you don't even realize that you walk through as a child. And I think that's where also, if you don't heal what broke you, you will bleed on other people. And for me, I try to heal the brokenness by earning it. And you can't earn healing, but I tried. And it was, if I can do more, then I can be more, and then I can feel better. And it's temporary.
So let me try to guess. A little perfectionism,
Hmm.
procrastination,
Oh, yeah.
burnout,
Hmm.
and this all culminated in what exactly?
So when we finally walked away, when we ended our foster care journey, I ended up with precancer cells. in an ovary
Mm.
that I needed to have removed. I had probably, I don't even know, she stopped counting at 25 to 30 fibroids. I needed a hysterectomy. I was 38 pounds heavier than I am now, but I was also drinking to not feel so sad at night and just emotionally numb myself. I was extremely addicted to sugar. Um, and I was not driven. I was just surviving. And and that's where it truly is, I believe, a tactic of the enemy. He plants these little lies when you're so young in your subconscious mind that you don't even realize that, and then they start growing legs and roots in your brain. And then pretty soon they become your identity and you don't even question them. You just feel like this is how it's always been. And when my health started showing up, I mean, I was finally diagnosed with social anxiety disorder in 2007. I was put on so much medication because I was in such a bad place. It was hard for me to breathe. And they put me on such a heavy medication that I now know that I emotionally flatlined. And so I went through a period where I didn't care about anything or anybody, or and I don't even remember some of it. And then it was diagnoses with fibromyalgia, and I had chronic migraines every single day. I was on migraine medication that made my brain feel like it was bleeding. And all of these diagnoses and all of these medications to just try and help with the symptoms of what my body was just trying to tell me, that we're bleeding out emotionally and you need to heal what's going on or else you're going to find the physical symptoms. And so I mean it's been a long journey, but I truly believe God had foster care end when it did, because it wasn't just me who needed healing, it was our kids and our family. And if I was going to step into that place of, okay, um, let me figure out actually how to get to the root cause of what's going on here and heal what broke me all the way back from childhood, of what it feels like to feel the effects of racism. And when you don't even realize what that's like, you don't even understand it. How do you process something you don't even understand other than the way it makes you feel? And it was so much more than that. And so it was healing all of that helped me really take a deep look at why I made the decisions that I did, but then also giving myself grace for not knowing better.
So, I know you well enough, even though I'm not sure where this is going. I know you well enough to know that your faith saw you through. What
It,
tools did God give you along the way to heal?
you know what's so crazy is, and I don't know if somebody else is going to resonate with this, but I've gone to church since I was in utero with my mother. I was in Awanas. I was in a private Christian school as a little girl. I went to all the summer camps. I knew God. I knew the Bible verses, but I didn't have a relationship with God. And I felt like in our church, we grew up Baptist. Uh, Holy Spirit was not talked about in the capacity that I understand Holy Spirit now. And I would remember going to church so many times and feeling like I needed to be rebaptized like every week, because I felt like I couldn't do enough to earn salvation. And so I remember when we were going through the foster care, closing our home and moving the kiddos that we had in our home, there was this one day, and it was all so emotionally overwhelming. And I collapsed to my knees we had a huge house. I think it was like 5,500 square feet, and we had 3 levels. And I was in the main or the bottom level of the house, and I just collapsed. And I said, Lord, all I am is a foster parent. What am I going to do with the rest of my life? This was everything that, like, you created me to be a foster parent, and I need to take care of my kids and move on and help them heal from this journey. But if you're taking this from me, then where does it leave me? And I felt like he had forsaken me. And I remember collapsing to the floor and sobbing. And that was the first time that I ever felt the Holy Spirit. And I felt like Jesus was right there with me. And that began, so that would have been what, 2017. And so that began my journey of God's not this mean man in the sky. I felt like he was Santa, like taking notes. And that's why I needed to keep getting baptized, because I would, sin and I'm always falling short. And would I even get into heaven? And so it was truly that point where I began the relationship. And now since then, I've had experiences where I've heard from God, and it's changed my life. And so it's definitely been a journey. But it was truly that one experience where I went from believing in God to having a relationship with God.
What do they say? The however far from your head to your heart, that 8-10 inches is the furthest distance you can imagine.
Yeah.
But you know what? You got there.
Yeah.
You got there, and God always does the heavy lifting.
He does. He does. And it's, when you look back and you can see how he lines everything up, and I didn't understand about predestined before. And he truly, like, you can look back and you can see the moments, the situations where there's proof. There's proof he was there. What is it like? He was the fourth man in the fire. He's always there.
He's in the yes, 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 and he's in the fires with us too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to hear about this book. So
Yeah.
so tell us about the book. You said it's launching this month.
So I partnered, so I was a part of, so the biggest thing, one of the biggest lessons that I learned is life is short, and the best thing you can ever do is get in the room with people who've done more than you in the area that you want to grow.
Mhm.
And so I joined a mastermind with the number one network marketer in the world. And it she is very faith driven and kingdom led, very strong believer. And so 10 of us partnered together to write a book. And we're all in the network marketing industry. But they're all stories of moments where God broke us, or allowed us to be broken, I should say, and how he transformed that valley into a mountaintop. And so in that book, it's releasing at the towards the end of March, and it will be available on Amazon and wherever else you'll find your books at. And I'm really thankful, because I thought it would be one of those super easy things to do, just write. It's only a chapter in a book, no big deal. But when it took me probably the out of everybody the longest to put my chapter together, it was because God was uncovering some heart wounds I didn't even know existed. And I think that's the coolest thing is if you allow him, he will perform surgery and remove what needs to be removed so that you can walk further in your journey of sanctification and towards him. And but it's not easy.
No, it's not easy,
Mm,
but it's so worth it because when you've been on the hurting team for so many years, and you've made a quote earlier, and it's similar to one of my favorites. Like when you're hurting, you'll bleed on people that didn't even cut you.
100%.
But once you find healing, you can't not want to be on Jesus's healing team. And don't take my word for it. Study out Mary Magdalene sometime.
Mm, yes.
She was healed. I won't go into it, but she was healed of so much.
Yeah.
And out of her gratitude, she just wanted to be with Jesus and help him with his ministry. And he was all
Hmm.
about healing in more than one way,
Hmm.
obviously.
Yeah.
So the book, what do you have what's the actual name of the book?
Um, I think, The Legacy Collective is the name of the book.
Okay. And it's not released yet, but it'll be released in a few weeks.
It will.
Uh, we'll be keeping an eye out for that for sure,
Yeah.
because I would love for that in our interviews and Facebook, they stay up for 30 days. But even after that, we can take the YouTube link and put it back up. But I would love to have the book in the comments section of our interview when it's done. So we'll be definitely looking
I
out
would
for
love
that.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, so just keep us surprised when that's released. We definitely like to showcase it.
absolutely.
What's next, Christine?
So it's interesting because I used to be somebody, and you could probably gather this, that would have all of my goals, all of my future plans mapped out. And I just had a vision for where I'm going. And I know my heart is in the network marketing space and helping. I truly believe that there's a different way. It's funny because I feel like the enemy has a playground in the network marketing space because there's competition, there's striving, there's gossip, there's slander, there's jealousy, like all of the things there's money, all of the things you could possibly uh, say that could tear a woman of faith down. Let's join network marketing. But there's a different way to build that because the enemy doesn't win. And when you truly dig into the kingdom principles, um, as you know, God always wins. And so, what the enemy meant to tear women down can be given glory to God. And so, I truly believe there's a different way to build this industry. And so, my heart is truly building kingdom women and helping them to step into their full authority that Christ has given us and to build and not just in this business, but the ripple effect into all the other areas that God wants his provision raining on. But for me, my heart's posture anymore is just surrendered. And so I don't know where or how or what that looks like. My daughter is going to start college this next fall, and I don't know what it's like to not have children at home. And what do you do in that time? But um I don't think there's a single day that I'll ever retire. I definitely don't see retiring in my future. I just signed up to be a part of the food um team at our church to donate or to hand out the food boxes. And so I don't know. I'm really open to wherever God is leading. And this is the first time that I don't necessarily have an agenda other than wherever, as long as I'm surrendered.
You never know what's next with God, right? I
Never.
love, I might get this math wrong, but from somebody that didn't want kids to having 81, right? More or less. Am I right?
Oh,
77 foster
70,
kids.
79. Yeah.
So, okay, 79 total.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the testimony of God is constantly working on our hearts to get us where he wants us to be for his plans. And I would say, Christine, I love, and it's shown through here today for sure. I love how you love God, you love the women you serve, and you love your family deeply. And
100%.
I just love your story. And I know we just scratched the surface. I know we just scratched the surface, but we talk about each day being a gift.
Hmm.
God has done so much in your life thus
Hmm.
far.
Yeah.
And so it is something to look forward to what's next. And you guys have heard in Christine's story, it's not been easy. I can assure you, with 77 foster kids, there was a plethora of challenges.
A lot.
Oh, and then you talk about the physical challenges that she's endured. And we don't have time right now. I can tell you because Christina, we've had conversations about adopted children and how
Hmm.
what a blessing it is for sure.
Hmm.
But it's not a picnic on Sunday afternoon, I assure you. So I thank you for being obedient to God's call. And I thank you for your heart for people. It's been wonderful having you as our guest. Any final thoughts you want to share with the folks before we say goodbye?
I would definitely want to encourage people in your group, especially because you are worthy, to lean into, I feel like pain leaves clues. And so if you're in that place where you're feeling competitive with somebody else, or you're feeling like you're not good enough, or you're feeling unchosen, or not successful enough yet, or maybe you feel like a complete failure, to just go back to the word because the Bible tells us that we have the mind of Christ. He gave us his abilities to heal and change and pour into and prophesy and serve and steward and lead others. But that's only when we are so connected to the vine. I mean, even his disciples struggled. So I would just encourage you today to just lean in, allow yourself to take a look at what is hurting you and decide you are worthy of healing. You're worthy because God says you are.
Very wise and encouraging words, Christine. Excuse me. It's interesting you referenced "Remain in the Vine." That's our theme as a church for the years. Remain. And I just finished John 15 last Sunday. So it's so true, right? I mean, Jesus
Mhm.
said, apart from him, we can do what? Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing good anyway, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but you're doing amazing things because you are rooted and remaining in him. So, Christine, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been my pleasure to
Thank
have
you.
you as our wonderful guest. God bless. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Guys, your story's not over yet. And you are, like Christine said, you are worthy. You're worthy of love, respect, and success. You were, God looked down and could have taken out mankind. And he certainly considered it. And he looked over at Jesus sitting at his right hand and he said, these knuckleheads down here, I love them so much. I can't take them out. Son, you're my only way. You're the only way that they can be redeemed. Tell me that's not love in action. That's the ultimate love in action. And it's Jesus' sacrifice and it's Jesus' blood that makes us worthy, not on our own. Jesus. I appreciate each one of you. Your story's not over yet. Remember that. Until next time, God bless. Take care.